Cajun Turnbuckle Podcast.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome back to another edition of the Cajun Turnbuckle Podcast right here on Dirty South Entertainment. We are your hosts, and we're back. It's Marky Mark, and it's Rich. Good morning. How you been?
Morning, man. How's it going?
I'm doing fantastic.
Yeah, a lot of stuff on the TV last night, huh?
Just FIFA. I mean, we did our watch along for USA and Paraguay. And that's probably all I really watched. Now today, yeah, I'll have a lot more to watch. I'll have all four of the matchups tonight, Game 5 of the NBA Finals. But I got a loaded weekend. I know this is now day 3 of like a long stretch of what I've had planned with live streams and recordings and whatnot. Since Thursday, I've been going live. This is the third day. What have I did my usual show on the go where we did a watch along with South Korea and Czechia, and also kind of broke down group stage throughout the week. We did our watch along yesterday with USA and Paraguay. I got this today. Tomorrow is our big watch along party of UFC Freedom 250. Monday, I'm doing a special edition of On the Go where I'm bringing a buddy on the Texas Collegiate team that I follow, the Gumbo Gators, and of course open mic on Tuesday before I get my daybreak on Wednesday. So I've been on a roll for the last couple of days, but I couldn't be more happier about it.
We talked a little bit backstage, and this is a little off topic, but we talked a little less off stage about the U.S. win last night over Paraguay 4-1. Mm-hmm. Did you see Christian Pulisic? There was a reason why he got pulled at halftime.
No.
He was kicked in the calf and has a bruised calf.
Oh, damn.
It knotted up on him at halftime.
There was somebody that headbutted with another player, and he got pulled out of the game. That's when they had that, before the hydration break, they had another break to, like, pull them off the field because they headbutted each other. Well, we got another exciting day, but I wanted to bring this up to you real quick as a surprise. I think I've started this back in March, so about 3 months I've been going on with this show. I gotta say, I want to give a big thank you to all the love and appreciation we've had in the last 3 months, because with that new topic we started last week, where we did our episode on the Von Erichs, we can call it Legends of Wrestling 101. That episode was the most downloaded episode on all audio platforms for this show. We had some numbers in that. I think within the last week, we had over 30 downloads, and that's a lot for a little show that just started. And we got listeners not just all over the United States, but like we got shout out to Indonesia, Singapore, and Spain. We got listeners all over the world listening to us, and they sure enjoyed that Von Erich one. And shouts to a couple of these states. I mean, outside of, Texas and Louisiana, we got a lot of listeners in Indiana, California, South Carolina, Virginia, New York, Florida, Michigan, Minnesota, Oklahoma, Utah. Like, shout to all of them states. Like, we got some listeners. Big thank you.
That's awesome, man. That's fantastic. Thanks, y'all, for checking us out. And hopefully you like what we're going to do today.
Oh, yeah. And shouts to which I upload everything through Podbean. I was recommended Podbean to do like distribute episodes and everything. It even lets you look at statistics and all that. Like, it lets you know where listeners are coming from. I can look at like a diagram of like, we get more downloads either on Spotify, or we get downloads on Apple Pod or Google Pod and whatnot. Get a couple from iHeartRadio. Like, I like how I could track all that. And then just maybe, I never really looked at the numbers, but I decided to look at it, and then I was like, man, everyone I've been dropping has been good, but that Von Erich one was the most downloaded one we've had so far.
Well, that's fantastic. Again, appreciate everybody that checked out the show. It was fun doing it. It's one of those topics we realistically could probably do about 10 hours on, to really deep dive into a lot of stuff. But it's also something that a lot of wrestling fans they get bits and pieces. They they see different things and they want to know what's real, or they just saw the Iron Claw and they think the Iron Claw is the whole story of the Von Erichs. No, I'll just leave it there.
And
No.
shouts to like if you watch the live streams on YouTube, the Clash in Italy Noche dello Grande prediction episode was the most viewed one we've had so far on my channel,
Wow.
halfway
Nice.
through 100. So that's a lot for me. Like for a small channel like mine, we've had over 60 views of that, and I'm like, that's a lot. Like any of the other ones, we may have had like numbers in the 20s or 30s, but the Clash in Italy Noche dello Grande one was the most viewed one on my channel. So shouts to all my followers making that one up. Like hopefully we're just growing. My channel's growing, the show's growing. I'm digging it.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, definitely. Congratulations. That's a great deal, man.
Yeah, thank you. Couple things. I mean, we're doing Junkyard Dog later today, but it won't be as long as the Von Erich one. But I figured you had a topic for me, and I had one for you. But I want to start off with something else. You can kind of help me question about. It's kind of a shock. I mean, a lot of people are not happy with TNA right now, especially releasing Steve Maclin. Some people.
Yeah.
You think it's because of the concussion thing that happened back in March at Sacrifice, or it could be something else?
Well, I think it could be a couple of things. It's been kind of public knowledge that Steve Macklin's been a little frustrated with TNA and the management and that kind of stuff for a little while now. Storyline and all that. That whole deal with his match against Mike Santana was legit. For anyone that thinks that storyline or no, that concussion that he had was legit, and he's had a few in his career. So that is kind of a thing as well. But there's also one other thing that a lot of people I don't think have realized because it kind of flowed under the radar a little bit. He's married to Deonna Purrazzo, and she left TNA a little while ago and went to AEW. And that and she's been wrestling in Ring of Honor. That may have something to do with things as well. So, that's there's a conceivability there that could be an issue. I don't know. He's one of those guys. Remember when he was Jackson Ritter in WWE? Do you remember that?
Can you hear me?
Yeah. Do you remember when he was Jackson
Ritter? I can
Ritter?
hear you. I can't hear you.
You can't hear me? You can't hear me. You got
like
me
I was
now?
listening to you, and then all of a sudden your mic just kind of went off.
That's weird. Let me. Are we better now?
I still can't hear you.
Oh.
I don't know what happened.
Oh no. Hold on. What about now? You hearing me okay now? What about now? You got me good? Hello, 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 hello. You got me?
a sec.
I just sent you a message.
You want to try and like get out and come back in?
1 2 1 2
'Cause
1
I
2.
still
You
can't
got
hear
me?
you.
Oh. Hold on.
Yeah, we had a technical difficulty there. Hopefully, Rich will be able to come back. Like he was talking about Steve Maclin, and all of a sudden his mic just cut off. So, hopefully, this will be a fun part to edit out. But hey, shit happens.
Okay.
There we go. Now I can hear you. Woo!
Yeah,
I don't know. I don't know what happened there.
That's weird.
I can always edit that. I can always edit that part out. Like,
what was the last thing you heard?
you were talking about Steve Maclin. I know that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, a lot of people don't realize that he's married to Deanna Purrazzo.
That's where I stopped. That's where you stopped.
Yeah.
Like I heard Deanna Purrazzo, then you just cut off.
Okay. Well, she has left TNA and become part of. She signed with AEW, but she's been wrestling a lot in Ring of Honor, and that may have something to do with Maclin requesting his release as well. Just simply because there's so much that they're doing that don't jive with each other schedule wise and that. I mean, I realize Jacksonville and Orlando aren't that far apart, but in the grand scheme of things, it may be one of those that they just wanted to, keep things closer and keep things where they can be together and that. I don't know. I've heard a number of different things, but I know the concussions are a concern, but I would more than likely say that he requested it so that he could eventually sign the deal with either Ring of Honor or AEW.
I mean, Ring of Honor, maybe. AEW, I don't know if that'd be a good fit because you never know how that's going to go. Like, yeah, right when he first gets there, he'll push him to the moon. And then, like, after a couple months, he could be in catering or he could be stuck in Ring of Honor. But I know Tony Khan works with new stuff unless they really, really want to make him the next face. But people are like saying TNA might go down the drain, especially I know Mike Santana's contract's fixing to come up. And if he don't renegotiate, he could be gone, and then TNA really might be screwed. But some people think he might end up going to WWE, but I don't know if I could see him in WWE just now.
I wouldn't see him in WWE. I would see him more in NXT. But Maclin is one of those. Maclin is one of those guys that in TNA he's a big deal. In a prime promotion, He's a mid-card guy at best. You know, a lot like Mike Santana. Um, would Santana be a main event player in WWE? Not a chance in the world. Um, realistically, TNA has exactly one guy that if he walked into WWE right now would be a main event player, and that's Dolph Ziggler, Nate Nemeth.
Yep.
That's it. You know, you could put Nick, Dolph, whatever, right back into the system, and he'd be perfectly fine. So our security system,
Yeah.
you can hear the security system coming through. So, but yeah, you know, it's just one of those deals that when you have to consider who could, are you the big fish in a little pond or a little fish in a huge pond? And even if they went to AEW, I don't know that Maclin would be a main event guy in AEW. You know, I could see him more in that. He'd be a great part of the conglomeration.
Or the Don Callis or
well, see, what I could honestly see because of their style, and I realize that Mark Briscoe's got something else going on, but I could see them putting a tag team of Maclin and Briscoe together.
don't sound bad.
I think those two guys could be a solid tag team together because of their style and all that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Outside of that, I don't know what you do with it. I really don't. WWE would have nothing for him. I don't even think NXT would have anything for him.
There was someone else that got released with Santana. I don't remember, but the main talk was not Santana, Steve Maclin, but it was Maclin that got my attention. But if Santana ends up leaving, then the TNA is really going to fall down, especially if you end up losing like the Hardys soon or the Righteous, because them two are carrying that company, or the System be another thing. Like they lose them, like TNA is going to really go down the drain.
Well, see, that's another problem. Have you seen the Hardys lately?
Yeah, they need to retire, but I feel like this storyline with the Righteous, I enjoy every second of it.
It would be fine if those guys were 10 years younger. If the Hardys were 10 years younger. Especially Jeff. Jeff's body has just gotten to the point. You can tell. Stevie Wonder can see that Jeff Hardy is getting to the point where he's just...
He can't go no more.
No, he can't. I mean, he's pushing 50 if he's not there already. And with all the stuff that he's put his body through, I think his body is just basically saying, time out. I'm done.
I think after
we're done.
I think after Slammiversary, this might be the end of the Hardys because I think they're just sticking around to push the Righteous over to make them the next dominant because that Wicked Guard match was brutal, and I feel like this is a step to put the tag titles on the Righteous once and for all because they are doing a triple threat ladder match at Slammiversary with them two and the System. So it's just a stepping stone for the Righteous to get the tag titles, which I'm all in for it. But yeah, if they end up losing like the Righteous, the Santana, or the System or something like that, yeah, they're gonna go down. But speaking of, I have one thing for you. If you might know this better than me, I don't know or not. It's especially when it comes to releases or requesting a release. I don't know if this was for real or if this was a bullshit prank, but according to Sean Ross Sapp, CM Punk was requesting his release from WWE because we haven't seen him since WrestleMania. But I'm seeing how Punk was supposed to make a comeback by SummerSlam, but they might push him to SmackDown. He's going to be at Fanatics Fest in New York later this month. I don't know if it's in June or this month or next month. So I don't really know what to believe. I don't know if Sean Ross Sapp was just drunk one day and just randomly put, CM Punk requests this release, or is this true or not? Because now everyone's like 50-50. Oh, is Punk going to leave and go back to AEW when he talked crap on them, or was this just a hoax that he posted just to piss the people off? Punk's eventually going to come back by SummerSlam.
Well, I know that there was time off planned after WrestleMania for two reasons. One, because that was going to be the end of AJ Lee's run. And two, just because of the schedule he had been running and all that kind of stuff. There's actually new Punk gear being made for his return. So he's not going anywhere.
Okay.
There's a Raw at the first part of July, and I don't remember the exact date. It's like the 6th, maybe, it's right around 4th of July. That is in Chicago. Perfect place for his return. I don't think he's not going anywhere. That's just not going to happen, because the only other things he could do besides being in WWE is either retire or retire. Because I would almost guarantee you Tony Khan's not going to rehire him. He's not a luchador or anything like that. So unless he went to Japan, which from what I gather is not his bag. So it's he's been off. Yes, it's supposed to, from what I gather, him and Orton both were planned to have time off after WrestleMania. I wouldn't be that concerned about it. But, sir, this is one that affects you directly. Money in the Bank.
Oh, you had to go there.
Hey, it's your neck of the woods there, pal. 2026 Money in the Bank. It came down this past week. Has been moved to October 10th from September the 6th. It was supposed to be Labor Day weekend, September 6th, and now it's October the 10th at the Smoothie King Center in New Orleans. So, it apparently they've got some live tour stuff in September, making sure that all the setups get to New Orleans in time and all that kind of deal. That's their logic behind it. Thoughts? Because I know you said you were going.
Well, first off, you were right about Chicago. July 6th, Raw's in Chicago after the 4th of July. I definitely can see him making an appearance over there. This is their first time in Chicago since Elimination Chamber, but they're going back to Allstate. And I saw he was on the SummerSlam poster right in the dead middle. So, I mean, they can always edit that. But, yeah, if Raw's in Chicago, I see him coming back. That's when he'll come back.
Mm-hmm.
Meanwhile, what you just mentioned there, my hands are tied now with it. I mean, it's already weird having it after SummerSlam when I'm used to it being a summer PLE, but you're not having a PLE in July. It's just an open month getting ready for SummerSlam, because now they do like SummerSlam right at the very beginning of the month, making it 2 nights. But it's like at first when they said, "Oh, we're taking WrestleMania from you. We're going to give you Money in the Bank." And I'm like, okay, cool, fine. Like, I was kind of upset about it because, other podcasts out there are like, we still never got an answer why they took it from money. It's all about the money. Vegas had tripled the offer of the bid than WrestleMania. That's why they pulled it from us. And they gave us money. And it kind of makes sense. Money in the Bank. They gave us money in our bank. They offered a triple bid to host it 2 years in a row. And we're just going to give you Money in the Bank. It's kind of the same answer. Well, then when I heard it was August, I thought that was corny. I said, okay, that is stupid. The first time they changed it to Labor Day weekend, I was totally fine with it. I said, okay, it's a Sunday show. The next night's Labor Day. LSU Clemson's the night before. I said, I like this. That would be the best Labor Day weekend for me ever. Like, I get off of work at 3:00. I haul ass to Baton Rouge, go to the Clemson game, get back in the truck, go either stay at a family member's house in Denham Springs or just get a hotel for the night and drive all the way to New Orleans and then drive back Sunday night after the show and sleep it off Monday for Labor Day. I had the perfect Labor Day weekend planned. And then I was just at work earlier this week. You were the first one to notify me about it. And at first, I didn't click on the picture. I thought they were canceling the show. Before I clicked on it, and it said, no, it's been changed to October 10th, 2026. And then all my other buddies, shout them out. Shout out to Isaac. Shout out to Eli, Dan, Bellier, all them guys. They all were coming one at a time on Facebook Messenger, sending me this like, bruh, they might as well just cancel the show, or like, what the hell? They hate y'all. When I saw this, I said, look, I can't do this shit anymore. That's our homecoming weekend, and I'm booked that whole weekend to DJ. So now I'm like, I'm not going anymore. Tickets go on sale July 10th finally. They're probably going to be overpriced, but now when I saw the date, I said, I ain't going now. It's our homecoming weekend. I got to DJ our homecoming dance that night and a homecoming festival before that. Fuck it. I'm just not going. I'm going to just watch it the next day, hungover on the ESPN app. Now, by some miracle, if something changes where I can find a replacement, if I'm that desperate to go, we'll see how ticket prices look. If they're way too overpriced, I'm just going to stick with the gig and make my money. But if it's decent enough to sit in the nosebleeds at least, I can find someone to take my place, DJing the gigs, and let him take the money. But we'll see what happens. But as of now, I'm just going to say I'm done. I'm tired of this changing the schedule and whatnot. Just do the damn thing or just get rid of it. Like, I'm at the point right now. Like, it already sounds corny being in the fall, but at least they're going to New Orleans at a perfect time with Halloween coming up, Voodoo Fest coming up, and it's a Saturday show again, so it ain't going to affect trying to go to a Saints game the next night because they play the Vikings the next night in the Dome right across the street. Right. So,
yeah. The one thing, I mean, you were talking about ticket prices. Are they going to be as insane as WrestleMania or Royal Rumble or SummerSlam? I really doubt that. But I don't think you're going to find a seat in the building for less than $100.
I don't know. I would be surprised because right when they got the deal with ESPN, I just decided, you know what? I just want to see how much WrestlePalooza is going to cost. Now that they got the first PLE on ESPN. Unless Indiana's a higher market than Louisiana, a nosebleed ticket for WrestlePalooza was $600. And that was in Indianapolis.
Well, but again, that was also the first event on ESPN. If I remember right, that was also Cena Tour. So you had jacked up prices on that. I think you had a whole lot different circumstances with that.
Well, here's one more thing.
This will be, if I remember correctly, Backlash ticket prices weren't that bad. And I mean, let's be honest. Money in the Bank and Backlash really aren't that much different in terms of where they sit in the hierarchy. You know, you got Royal Rumble, SummerSlam, Survivor Series. You just lost your lights. Right
I
here.
didn't even have them on. I didn't even have the lights on. I just went to mute my mic and I buffered a little bit.
Gotcha.
That was probably the sun. That was the sun that disappeared. It's cloudy outside.
Gotcha. But you got Rumble, WrestleMania, SummerSlam, Survivor Series here.
Mm-hmm.
Everything else kind of falls on that next tier, even Money in the Bank. So, I mean, could I see, $100, $150 cheap seats to that? Yeah.
Hopefully.
But still, that's $100 or $150 instead of just a few years ago, those seats were $50, $60, $70.
Mm-hmm. This is also what gets me. You're going to replace this with a special edition of Saturday night's main event and call it Sunday night's main event. That is the most diabolical decision I've ever had. I said, that is so stupid. I hope no one shows up to the show. I hope whoever Ole Miss is playing that Sunday, there's a college football game that they're competing with. I hope it has the most views than this Sunday night main event crap. You should have just called it Sunday Night Heat. No one's going to want to go there. Everybody's going to go watch Georgia Bulldogs. So they better be lucky. That's why another reason, shouts to Trey Tucker. They didn't want to do it on a Saturday night because they know everyone's going to be in Athens for a Georgia football game week 1. They're not going to want to go to a wrestling show in Atlanta the first night, Saturday night of college football in the regular season. So they want to do it on Sunday before Labor Day, but they ain't going to have the numbers because whoever Ole Miss is playing that night, they're going to get the ratings for that.
Right, but you got Georgia playing in Athens. You have Baylor and Auburn playing in Atlanta in the State Farm Classic that same night. I mean, if you put a show on in Atlanta, your crowd is going to be minuscule at best. Tuscaloosa, Bama's going to be home again in Tuscaloosa. Yeah. So, I mean, if they're going to look at it from this standpoint, though, you're going to get 2 quasi big events from WWE in the period of 7 weeks. If you get Sunday night's main event, supposedly, and Money in the Bank, you're going to have that within 7 weeks of each other.
Oh, they're going to be competing with 2 college football games that night. Ole Miss is playing Louisville, and I think it's in Charlotte. I think it's a neutral site game, or it might be at the Grove. The other game they're competing with is Wisconsin and Notre Dame.
And you're talking that September 6th game?
Yes, Sunday night's main event. Yeah. There's 3 college football games that Sunday, but 2 are going to be going on at the same time. Ole Miss, Louisville, and Notre Dame, Wisconsin. Ole Miss and Louisville is a neutral site game. Yeah, it's in it's in Nashville. Ole Miss and Louisville will be in Nashville. Wisconsin, Notre Dame, I'm pretty sure is in it's at Lambeau. Oh, it's another neutral site game. So yeah.
Yeah.
Good luck.
You got Texas Southern at Prairie View, South Carolina State, Florida A&M. Yeah, you got several games that night. But at least they're not doing it would be absolutely dumb to try and do Saturday football, Saturday PLE during college football season. These guys didn't make all this money by being stupid. That's kind of like trying to run a carnival in Texas on high school football Friday.
I've seen PLEs go live earlier to avoid some of those big marquee primetime college football games. Like I remember that happened with Survivor Series. They did it. Not the one they just did in San Diego, the one the year prior when they were in Vancouver. They went live at 2:00 Pacific because they didn't want to compete with all the rivalry games going on that weekend. They didn't want to compete with like the Iron Bowl. Well, there were going on in the middle of the Iron Bowl, like whatever the big. I think it was Texas A&M. They didn't want to compete with that because they knew everyone was going to watch the Lone Star Showdown for the first time in like over a decade. This was their first meeting when Texas joined the SEC. Because Michigan, Ohio State was already done when they went live. They were only competing with like the Iron Bowl, and they were competing like a couple other big rivalry games. They put it in between the 2 biggest rivalry games you could get that day. That was probably the smartest thing they did. Now, Survivor Series, their numbers were bad because they were competing with those rivalry games that same weekend.
They're honestly better off competing against Sunday Night Football in the NFL than they are against college football.
Yep.
Because, to the largest degree, your largest NFL Sunday Night Football numbers are going to come from the participating areas. College, you got alumni all over the place. You get Alabama, Florida, or Georgia, Auburn, or something like that. You have alums all over the freaking place. So I can see them not competing with those and being more concerned with, say you've got Cincinnati and Baltimore on Sunday Night Football. Okay. you know, outside of the AFC North fans, you know, you're not going to have as many. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I don't know. They keep pushing it back. It's going to end up being a Christmas pay-per-view
Hmm.
or PLE. Sorry.
Yeah. Well, that's all I got on that. We'll just play it by ear. We'll play it by ear when we get closer. We'll start with the ticket prices, and then we'll see where we go from there. If I decide to still make the trip or not, but let's get this one rolling. Another little Legends of Wrestling 101. Last week, I wanted to start with a group you were very well known for, and probably the biggest attraction in Texas. Well, I said I want to do somebody who was mainly the biggest attraction in Louisiana, but he was very, very beloved all across the deep South, the South, Mid-South, and then when he got bigger, he was very well known worldwide.
Sure.
His real name goes by Sylvester Ritter, but he was always known as the Junkyard Dog. Now, this was also around your time as well. I got to ask real quick, were you lucky enough to watch him wrestle in person or even meet the guy?
Yes to both. Yes, I got a chance to see him wrestle live. David Von Erich Memorial Parade of Champions when he wrestled Kamala. A couple of other times when he would make one shots in Texas. I got to see him wrestle probably 3 or 4 times in person. At the one show in '85, if you went in terms of biggest crowd reaction, obviously the Von Erichs were at the top. Fantastics were next, and then Junkyard Dog. And it was close between Dog and the Fantastics. Yeah, people loved the Dog, man.
So,
The
yeah.
music, the chain, the dancing when he came out to the ring. Yeah, when I got to meet him was after he had pretty much called it quits in the wrestling business. I was doing security for an event. He was he was at the event. Got a chance to meet him, talk to him a little bit, that kind of stuff. Nice enough guy, but you could definitely tell that he was not the Junkyard Dog that you saw in, around all the kids and all that kind of stuff 10 or 15 years before that.
When you saw him wrestle in person, what song did he come
Mm-hmm.
out to at the time? Did he come out to Another One Bite the Dust by Queen or
Mm-hmm.
Atomic Dog by George Clifton?
No, Another One Bites the Dust.
Okay, because that they brought that up, like when you heard Another One Bites the Dust, you knew the dog was coming, but he did change it to George Clifton's Atomic Dog, which I feel like that song fits him more than Another One Bites the Dust. That's just me. Like when every time I hear that song, I think of JYD. I think of him.
He did.
Shaking them knees, leaning back, doing
Mm-hmm.
the thump, all that good stuff.
Well, and then of course they changed it in WWF too. Whenever they did that wrestling album,
Grab them cakes.
Yeah. But no, the only time I ever saw him come out at that time in that particular time frame to something outside of Another One Bites the Dust, he and Iceman King Parsons tag team in Dallas, and they both came out to "We Are Family," which was Iceman's song.
Yep.
Yeah, which has a special spot in my heart because that's the song from the 1979 Pittsburgh Pirates that won the World Series. Willie Stargell and that whole bunch. But yeah, that was Iceman's song, was "We Are Family" from Sister Sledge, and they were tag team, so they just came out to that song. I think it was one of those where Dog probably said, "Hey, it's your territory. We'll come out to you. I'll come out to your music. No big deal."
Yeah. So when I discovered wrestling in '97, my dad was like very happy that I found it. And then at the time, I was probably, I guess at the time Goldberg was the favorite because I remember when my dad and I watched Nitro together for the first time. I just asked, he was like, I used to watch this as a kid and all that back in the day. And I remember asking him, I was like, who's your all-time favorite wrestler? He said Junkyard Dog. And I've heard stories like he was the most beloved guy. He's making it sound like, okay, we got a legendary guy from Louisiana, but in reality, he's originally from North Carolina. Did not know what he looked like until he passed away, because I just would hear that name. Like when they heard I was a wrestling fan, everybody around town was like, "Oh, you should have. If you would have been around when the Junkyard Dog was wrestling, he was our guy. He was our Hulk Hogan. He was our Ric Flair. He was our Goldberg. Since you're a Goldberg guy, which I ain't a Goldberg guy no more." Well, I remember hearing about the car crash. Like he died in a car wreck, and it was like one of the most tragic news that broke out in Louisiana. I kept thinking in my head, I want to see what he looks like. I kept thinking he was probably a white guy or something. But when I saw his picture on the news when he passed away, I was like, oh, he's a black guy. Because no disrespect and all that, but if you've watched Dark Side of the Ring, when they interviewed all those guys, they said back in that time frame, wrestling was a white man's sport. But Bill Watts saw something in him. He wanted to kind of change the boundary. He turned him like into the Jackie Robinson of wrestling in Mid-South and in the Deep South.
Bill Watts has a very famous quote that says, "I don't see black. I didn't see white. I saw green."
Green sold him
and he saw money in Junkyard Dog. Obviously, Mid-South wasn't his first territory, and we'll get into that here in a little bit. But I mean, to tell you how popular he was, they had a poll. The New Orleans newspaper did a poll on the most popular athlete in New Orleans. Now, granted, this took into consideration Archie Manning. This took into consideration anybody at LSU, all that kind of stuff. And Junkyard Dog wins this thing in a landslide.
Ooh.
He was, you made the comment last week, and it was dead on. He was to Louisiana what the Von Erichs were to Texas. Really, the only other Louisiana wrestler at that point in time was Jake Roberts. But he wasn't Jake the Snake for a while. He was always the bad guy. Junkyard Dog just had that
he wasn't amateur or technical. He was more of a brawler. He was a fighter.
But he had it. How guys just have it that attracts people to you for whatever reason? He had it. The kids loved him. The guys loved him. The ladies loved him. Everybody loved him in Louisiana.
Like, y'all had the Sportatorium in Dallas. New Orleans had the downtown municipal auditorium. That was his house. New Orleans was his town, like Dallas was for the Von Erichs. I'll get to more on that in a bit. But yeah, I think he started with Stu's promotion, Calgary Stampede, back in '79, but he was known as Big Daddy Ritter.
Well, even before that.
Okay.
Even before that, he was in Memphis.
Okay.
And he had come in. Now, what you probably saw of Junkyard Dog, when he first started, he was built. He had that bodybuilder kind of look to him. He had the muscle going. And he came in and he had adopted a gimmick of the king. Now, you're in Memphis and you're trying to be the king, you got problems. Because there's this guy named Lawler that's going to have something to say about it.
Yep.
But he spent about 2 years, I guess, in Memphis. And then he went to Mid-South, and then he went to Calgary. But yeah, he was in Memphis for a little while, became Southern Tag Champion for a little while. In fact, he tagged with a guy that actually two guys one of which everybody knows for his kid, and the other one everybody knows by a different name. He tagged with Rocky Johnson for a while, who everybody knows as The Rock's dad. But then he tagged with a guy named Soul Train Jones, who became Virgil.
Wow.
Yeah.
And was it like in 80 or 81 he went to Mid-South?
Yeah. He didn't spend much time in Calgary though. For whatever reason, he wasn't there long.
And then when he got to Mid-South, he was the king of Louisiana, but he was wherever it was mainly Louisiana, Mississippi, Arkansas, Oklahoma, and Texas. I guess that's mainly, maybe not a lot of Texas, because that was Fritz's territory, but I mean they did do shows in Houston and whatnot. Like there was one match in particular I'll bring up, but I guess the Mid-South territory, it mainly focused on Louisiana and Mississippi, but they also drew in Oklahoma because that's where Bill Watts is from. He played for the Sooners. Arkansas was another state. What about like Alabama, or was that a part of Georgia? Championship wrestling territory.
Yeah, Alabama was more of like continental southern states, that kind of thing. You had Bob Armstrong's territory out there. You had Bo James' territory out there. That was kind of too far east. Mid-South, you're exactly right. It started out as just Louisiana when Leroy McGurk owned the territory. And then when Watts bought it, Watts was running Oklahoma at the time, Oklahoma and a little bit of Arkansas. Leroy McGurk was running Louisiana and a little bit of Arkansas. So when Watts bought it, they just kind of went and put it all together. And then they came into Texas, like you said. They were parts. There was Mid-South guys on a ton of really big cards that Paul Bosch put together, and that Joe Blanchard in San Antonio put together.
Well, I still haven't figured the area yet. I've been doing researching for years, and I still haven't figured when it happened or the date, but sometime between 80 to like maybe I'll say 83 or early 84, they did a show at my alma mater, at my high school that I graduated from and I helped coach and do stats with. In our gymnasium, they said a long time ago, there was a wrestling ring in that gymnasium several times. Junkyard Dog has been at my high school. The Fabulous Freebirds, Jake the Snake Roberts, Hacksaw Jim Duggan, Ted DiBiase, Tony Atlas.
What high school?
Lake Arthur High School. They did a show because then they said the whole town of Lake Arthur was at the high school watching JYD and all those other guys I mentioned. Most of those guys were WWE superstars or Hall of Famers, have all wrestled at my high school for a show back in the early 80s. And my whole family went to the show. Friends I've known went to the show. I've even met people like outside the area. Like I knew people from Lake Charles. They said, I remember I went to that show at Lake Arthur High School or all that stuff. Like they would go to Lake Charles a lot at the Civic Center. They'd go to Lafayette at the old Blackham Coliseum before the Cajun Dome was built. They've wrestled all over the state. But back to New Orleans, they had the Superdome, but they didn't really run a lot of Superdome shows. But Junkyard Dog has wrestled in the Superdome. He's wrestled at the lakefront. But it was the Sportatorium downtown that was his house. Like, when I'm telling you, he was so loved. Here's another question in between. When it comes to, like, his most arch rival, everybody's got that one arch rival. Like, Austin's was McMahon or Rock, or Cena's was Randy Orton or whatever. I cut it down to 3 people because of 3 particular reasons. Who was Junkyard Dog's most arch nemesis? Was it the Freebirds because of the whole hair cream stuff they got in his eyes that had a guy pull a gun out at a show wanting to kill the Freebirds? Or was it Ted DiBiase because they had numerous matches together? They formed as a tag team at one point, and in real life, JYD was Ted DiBiase's best man in his wedding? Or was it Butch Reed, who had one of the most brutal dog collar matches I ever saw that took place in 1981 at the old Sam Houston Coliseum?
Well, your answer is yes. because it was at different times, and I think it's very tough to put one ahead of the other. The Freebird thing, that was the hottest thing going in wrestling at that point in time, mainly because of the popularity of the dog. The Freebirds hold a distinction in pro wrestling as far as being a major part of two of the biggest angles in the history of wrestling. Freebirds and Dog, Freebirds Von Erichs. Um, on the other side of that, the whole deal with DiBiase, yeah, I mean, there was a loser leave town match, and Dog ends up getting pinned, and that's where the whole Stagger Lee thing comes into play and all that kind of stuff. And him and DiBiase had some really good matches. Then they developed into tag matches where at one point in time you had Dog and Butch Reed as a tag team against DiBiase and Duggan. And then Dog would team up with Magnum TA or Mr. Wrestling 2 or whoever. Dog and Reed, I wish would have lasted longer. I mean, if you had to narrow it down to one, to be perfectly honest, I'd probably say DiBiase. But I think you're right on all three. Butch Reed was his own worst enemy. Much like Buddy Landell and really much like Dog. But boy, that when Butch Reed and Dog had their thing going, that was huge. And by the way, going back to your question from a minute ago, late November 1981, Lake Arthur High School, Mid-South Wrestling, promoted by Bill Watts. Main event, Junkyard Dog, Ted DiBiase.
Wow. Okay.
Hacksaw Duggan versus Bob Roop. Paul Orndorff versus Paul Ellering. Those were your top three matches.
Okay. Yeah, DiBiase and JYD battled in that gymnasium I graduated from and watched basketball games and did PE and all that stuff. Wow, nice.
There you go.
Now, the dog collar match is on YouTube. I've watched it several times. It was bloody. It was brutal. I mean, it ain't nothing compared to Necro Butcher Samoa Joe. But I mean, back then that was like a big deal with all the blood they put in that ring in that dog collar match. But bring up the whole hair cream situation that had him blind partially, but had him do an interview when his daughter LaToya was about to be born. Because if you've not realized this, when kayfabe wasn't even known for, people took it as this was real. If you watch wrestling in the Deep South, especially if your grandma watched it back in the day, it was a freaking soap opera to these people.
Yep.
They believed he was really that blind. They really wanted Michael P.S. Hayes' head on a pedestal more than Terry Taylor or Johnny Garvin. They wanted it more on Michael Hayes. That literally, there was a show in New Orleans. There was a guy who pulled a pistol out. First off, security might have been big back in the 80s. How do you manage to sneak a gun in a wrestling show? And kayfabe could have been broken there. JYD could have been like, hey, no. But he stayed in character. Luckily, the cops, according to Jim Cornette, I literally believe Jim Cornette when he told that story. I know a lot of people will criticize him a lot, just as bad as they would criticize like a Sean Ross Sapp or Dirt Sheets and whatnot. But when he told that story, I 100% believed him. I said, y'all don't understand how serious
he was there. He was there.
And he was there. I believe.
Well, you got to remember back then, Louisiana, Texas, that whole area. I mean, concealed carry is no big deal. Still in the state of Texas, it's no big deal. Now, granted, you can't walk into here in Waco, it's called the Extraco Event Center. You couldn't walk into the Extraco Event Center for the wrestling matches and have a gun on your head. But at the same time, back then you could. If you had your concealed carry license, you just carried it for self-defense. Or you had a knife that you had in your pocket, not necessarily a switchblade, but just a pocket knife, when the whole thing went down with Dog and the Freebirds, the timing was perfect because, like you said, his daughter had just been born, and they went through the whole thing of he'll never see his daughter, and he had the so the gauze patches over his eyes and the tape and all that kind of stuff. And it goes back to what we had talked about before about how close the fans could get to ringside. Junkyard Dog was sitting there watching the match, and the Freebirds were wrestling, supposedly watching. Okay. And the Freebirds were wrestling, and the fan reached over. They even talk about this on Dark Side of the Ring. Put his hand on, so that's all right, Dog. I got him. And he heard the gun, the bullet click into the chamber. This dude was going to shoot Michael Hayes for taking out the Dog. It was the Freebird hair cream. It was Nair. Anybody that knows what Nair
that's
is.
The only hair removal cream I can think of still today is Nair.
The cream was legit because I didn't know that it was until Michael Hayes did an interview, or Buddy Roberts, did an interview in Dallas. Him and Iceman Parsons had a thing going where it was hair versus hair, and it was going to be the Freebird hair cream was going to make somebody bald. Michael Hayes or Buddy Roberts took some on his hand, put it on his forearm and rubbed it, and the hair was gone.
In like a minute or so.
Oh, yeah, it was gone. He said, you think this stuff doesn't work? And he put it on his forearm and no hair.
Oh,
so
no,
everybody now is like, oh, crap.
Oh, no, it worked. I have used it once on my back.
Oh, I've used it before.
I've used it on my back. It's a summer, which I just use a blade now. Like, I don't like having a hairy back in the summer, especially when you sweat. So I used to use Nair to get it removed, especially if we were like going to like a water park or something days before. Right. Or now I just use blades. I get someone to do my back, especially because I just look like A Train if I don't take care of that. I look like Prince Albert.
I got you.
But
the whole thing started with Michael Hayes supposedly accidentally blinding him.
Yeah, accidentally. I think that.
And they but it ended up being a case where the whole area, fans were absolutely just livid.
Now, this is what I really don't believe this storyline right here. Now, what I do believe was I've heard a lot of good stuff about Bill Watts. Like, Bill Watts was really a fine gentleman. Like, he cared about his wrestlers. He cared about the fans and whatnot. He was the guy who made JYD what he was. And I believe that JYD was making the most money in Mid-South more than any other wrestler at the time when he got the offer to go make a lot more in '84 with Vince in the WWF. I don't believe that story Teddy Long told where he said a racial comment about him that caused him to leave. I think he left to go make the money. He didn't leave because he said a racist comment to Grizzly Smith about JYD, and he overheard it in a bathroom stall. I don't believe that one bit.
Well, if it wasn't for the fact that I've heard it from several sources, I would be questionable of it. But I'm not. I don't doubt it. Like I say, simply because I've heard it from a number of sources. So that, it sucks that it was that way, but you got to remember this was also southern part of the country in the early mid 80s. And in that part of the country, you ever heard of a thing called, if nobody's ever heard of a thing called the Old Boy Network? Bill Watts was part of that old boy network. He may have only looked at green, but there was still issues. I'm not calling Bill Watts a racist by any stretch of the imagination. He may have been, he may not have been. I don't know. And, you know, different people say different things. But I have heard from multiple sources that that was the reason why Dog wanted to get out of there. He had heard that statement, and Dog wasn't getting paid as much as he should have been because he was at one point the highest paid guy in Mid South. Then it had gotten to the point where Duggan was getting paid more, Wrestling 2 was getting paid more. So, you know, that particular scenario there is not. And Dog wasn't happy because, you know, you've made the comment. You've made the comment yourself. New Orleans and the territory itself was the Dog's territory. And Mid South really suffered when Dog left. I mean, because it started a waterfall. Dog left, DiBiase left, Duggan left. You know, they just Buddy Landell left. Magnum TA left. Some went to WWF, some went to NWA, but it just started a waterfall. And I like I say, just because I've heard more than one person say it, I honestly think that was the reason why he left. Not to mention the money that he was going to make from Vince, because Vince knew what kind of money he could make from Dog.
And I know it really heartbroken that he left for the money like that. And he did try to replace. Now, when he said he tried to replace him, did they try to make another African American wrestler the next when I mean next Junkyard Dog, the same gimmick, or they were just trying to push another African American star to the moon like they did him? Because they said they did try Butch Reed, but I think Butch Reed already been with the company if they already had that dog collar match in the past. But I also remember they tried to push George Wells up, Brickhouse Brown, and even whoever Snowman is, according to Tony Atlas, a guy named Snowman.
Yeah, Snowman, he wrestled in Mid South. He wrestled in Memphis. I have yet to hear anybody say a good thing about the Snowman. But you're right, they did. They tried to find that next JYD, which, you know, going back to our talk from last week, it's like trying to find the next David Von Erich. Yeah. It's just not going to happen.
Or even the next John Cena, or
right. You know, everybody for the way people looked at Dog in the Mid South territory, you weren't going to replace. You had to have somebody else take that spot, but they weren't going to be the next JYD. You know, kind of like when Austin got hurt, Rock took over. There is absolutely nothing similar between Rock and Stone Cold except their mic skills. But Rock was able to succeed. If they would have tried going that route and bring in, you know, and develop another guy, not to be the next Junkyard Dog, but to be the first, whoever the person was, I think it might have been more successful. But yeah, and if you've ever seen the episode of Mid South TV right after Dog left, Bill Watts pretty much throws Dog under the bus because he paints the picture that it got too tough in Mid South, it got too hard in Mid South, and he went to another organization where it would be easier. The competition wouldn't be as hard, and that he could mess around with a bunch of cartoon characters.
Well, when he got to the WWF, you know, they put him in some good feuds and whatnot. I remember he wrestled like Jake Snake Roberts, or he wrestled this guy, that guy. They even had him team up with Hogan at one point. I don't know if they've ever wrestled each other one-on-one. Hell, he was a part of the first WrestleMania against Greg the Hammer Valentine for the Intercontinental Championship, even though he won the match by DQ, or by countout, didn't win the title. The very first Junkyard Dog match I ever watched, after hearing stories about him from my dad and after his passing, I remember when I would go rent back in the old days when you'd rent movies from Blockbuster or whatnot, they used to have a good selection of VHS tapes. And one day, I wanted to try and watch something retro, and I decided to take WrestleMania 3 home. And sure enough, I saw on the back of the box, Junkyard Dog had a match with Harley Race. And if he lost, you had to bow. Loser must bow match or something where he had to bow. He was the king of the ring, or he was the king gimmick. Right. That scene where he was on that little cart riding through the Silverdome, that was one of those iconic moments, because it was like that was the largest crowd I think he ever wrestled in front of, was 93,000. That one match was actually entertaining, even though he did not win the match. That he stole the crown and the cape from Harley Race and rode back to the locker room with it on to entertain the crowd. However long that match was, I think it was like a 5-6 minute match. I was so entertained for those 5-6 minutes of how good he was, even though he did not win. I said, I see why he's so loved down here. Like, I was entertained by that match with Harley Race, even though he did not win.
Yeah, and it was a real shame, because when you look at what he had done, in his career up to that point, he was 4 times North American heavyweight champion, 8 times Mid-South tag team champion, 3-time Louisiana champion. He was the 6-man tag team champion in world championship wrestling. He was the Stampede Wrestling North American champion, and he held the USWA title when he was in Memphis. Okay. Guess how many titles he held in WWF in his time there? That would be a big goose egg. Junkyard Dog never won a WWE championship of any kind. And, I mean, think about that one for a minute. Really, really seriously think about that one for a minute. That Junkyard Dog spent all that time, had all that following, had all the stuff happening in WWE, and never had a championship. Not one time.
Nope.
That's nuts. He never won a title in WWE.
And I don't know what Vince was thinking, but yeah, I thought he was the Louisiana heavyweight champ 5 times, but I think it was 3, because they had those regional championships, and the Louisiana championship was like a big deal down here. Like, it may have been a mid-card title for Mid-South, but it felt like the world title for the state, and he's won it quite a bit. I thought he won it 5 times, but I think it was, you said 3. And he's won like other regional championships in Mid-South and all the other territories he wrestled at. But yeah, when he got to WWF, it could have been, I think he'd have been like a great Intercontinental champion if they'd have like actually put it on him at the first WrestleMania. Or I don't know, he really didn't really team up with a lot of guys. They would just like pair him with Hogan at one point, or pair him with this guy, that guy. But I guess it was just a Vince thing. Like, if Vince really wanted to pull the trigger like Bill Watts did, he could have been just as big as like Hulk Hogan, the same way if they would have done the same with Kerry Von Erich when we talked about that last week. But no disrespect to Ron Simmons. Yeah, he was the first African-American world champion for like an international company like WCW. And I won't argue to the bit about that, but what if they would have done that for JYD instead of Ron Simmons? Like, what if JYD could have been the first African-American world champion for an international company like that if Vince did the right thing, or if Vince decided to really blast him to the moon to be that big of a star? Because I think he could have been the same level as like Hulk Hogan.
Oh, I don't think there's any doubt of it. And it would have brought in an entirely different audience, because no matter how much, again, you got to look at the time frame on this. We're talking late 80s, early 90s. The world was different back then. And, Hogan was the prototypical white meat babyface, as a lot of wrestling pundits call it. But if you could have put the world title on Junkyard Dog, the only person outside of that was getting the kind of pop that Hogan was getting in WWE was Dog. You had lots of other guys. When Savage was a good guy, Ricky Steamboat, Tito Santana. Even even Hacksaw Duggan when he was wrestling Nikolai Volkov and guys like that. With the whole USA thing, those guys weren't getting the pops that Dog was getting. There were a lot of people that thought the exact same way you do, Mark, that why didn't Vince ever put the title on it?
I don't know. And I'm going to take that he was probably released like in I'm going to say sometime 87, 88 due to like no shows. But because we all know back in those times, every wrestler was doing something, whether if it was drugs or steroids, everyone, and Vince didn't care. That's going to make you go or make you bigger, stronger. He didn't care about that back then, but I think it's him not showing up that might have cost him his job with the WWF, but we knew he had an addiction. Like he started with weed, which really, I guess, was really nothing that serious, but I guess it was the cocaine. They said he was really into cocaine, and that just kept him going. And that's really mainly like he was using the money for it. But also, I believe the story from Tony Atlas, he was that big, like I'm going to say as big as the Beatles, that even women were paying him to have sex. He was making money from women.
Well,
and so I saw some of the other wrestlers got laid too, hanging out with him.
Yeah. Well, and the two biggest abilities that anybody can have for Vince McMahon was dependability and availability. Everything else came after that. And his big thing was for the longest time that he didn't care what the guys were doing as long as A, they didn't get caught, and B, it didn't affect them showing up for when they were supposed to be wherever they were supposed to be and performing like they should. And Dog was having, in the beginning, it wasn't that bad. He wasn't missing shows and things like that. But then he started missing a house show here and there. Then he started missing more shows. Then he started missing big shows. And it just kind of snowballed, and it finally got to the point that they couldn't do it anymore. He was released in '88. When you sit there and think about it, I mean, and again, we think about Mid-South. He was only in Mid-South for 3 years. He was only in WWE for 4, from '84 to '88. It's just a shame that, because could you imagine crowd reaction wise what Junkyard Dog would do today?
Yeah, especially if he was still around to talk and whatnot. But I take it after the release in '88. You kind of say he hit rock bottom. He did still wrestle. He went back into the indies for a couple of years, and then it was about like 92, 93. He got the call to go to WCW to go back and work under Bill Watts when he was running that promotion, but it wasn't the same because I saw a footage of him when he wrestled in WCW. He just didn't look the same. He looked bald. He looked bloated. Like, I always remembered that look where he had the big beard, whether he had like the little fro hair or he just had the short little buzz like he had in like the mid 80s. But in '93, he didn't look good. Like, he bloated, he was bald, he looked old, and he was only in his 40s, but he looked like he was in his 50s or even 60s. And to be honest, I don't even know how long that run lasted in WCW. I thought maybe it lasted like a year or two, but it didn't last as long, and he wasn't the same, and he was just going to make his money, and then he just do his thing.
Yeah. When he went to normal circumstances, when he was wrestling in Mid-South and when he was wrestling in WWE, he was somewhere around 260, 265, maybe 270. When he went to WCW to work for Watts, he was weighing in at 310, 320. He had a gut on him. You could tell he wasn't taking care of himself. He wasn't hitting the gym. But he was still trying to do the stuff that Dog did. And, they tried putting him in some tag teams. They tried putting him in different stuff. They really tried putting a team together with him and Tommy Rich, which at that particular point in time was kind of like the blind leading the blind. Because Tommy Rich wasn't the Tommy Rich of the early mid 80s either. So, it really was a shame because you hadn't seen Dog in a couple of years. And then all of a sudden, boom, he shows up in WCW. And you're like, all right, they're talking about Junkyard Dog's going to be coming to WCW and all that. And, it's the lead balloon theory. It wasn't the same. Wasn't anywhere. I'm sure if you've seen the videos and that of it, if you haven't, I've got a buddy of mine that they've done reviews of WCW since like 85, and they're already up to like 94 now. But it's a thing called Booking the Territory. And the guys talked about all that stuff.
I need to check that out then.
Well, two of the guys grew up in Louisiana. One of them still lives in Metairie. His name's Hardbody Harper.
Okay.
And the other guy's name is Mike Mills. He lives in Dallas now. But they were talking about the exact same thing you were talking about. You get this guy that was God to wrestling fans in Louisiana all that time. And you see him in WCW in 92, and you're going, who is this guy? This isn't the Junkyard Dog that I cheered for when I was a kid, that kind of thing. So
yeah, and it was sad the way he ended up going. At the time he was living in Mississippi, he drove straight to North Carolina, wherever his family was living at, to go to his own. He only had one child, LaToya. We've seen her. The only time I've ever seen her on live TV was when JYD got inducted in the WWE Hall of Fame. She represented him, and sadly she passed away not long ago too. Like, I don't know if it was cancer or she was sick, but his only daughter passed away, like, I think almost like 10 years ago.
Yep. Yeah, she passed away in 2011. She was only 31.
Oh man.
They say she had a massive heart attack, but the medical report says that it was a ruptured heart valve.
Oh man, it's horrible. But yeah, it was sad the way he had, like, they said his nephew that talked about him on Dark Side of the Ring said, like, he was living in Mississippi. He drove like 9-10 straight hours without stopping. He drove all the way to North Carolina to go to his daughter's graduation. And as soon as it was over, he just got back in the car and said, I'm going back to Mississippi. And I don't know if he was still doing any kind of drug or whatnot, but I've heard stories where, like, cocaine or whatever can, like, keep the energy going. Like, you can be wide awake for days. I mean, I don't know if that theoretically true or not, because I've never done drugs in my life, so I couldn't even answer that for you. But all I just remember hearing, like, I've always wondered, how did he pass away? Like, when he died, all they kept saying was he died in a car wreck, died in a car crash, flipped the car off the road. But then when the years go by, I hear, like, he fell asleep on the road. That's all I kept hearing. He fell asleep on the road, which you drive long hours of the night and you don't have nothing to keep you going, it can happen. I'll tell you another story about that. But I guess it was the drugs he either recently done days prior or from the past that he would always stay awake. And then just at one point, his body couldn't take it no more. And his brain just shut down and he just passed out on the wheel, fell asleep. Like, body couldn't go anymore and your body just shut down. Same way my body would feel as soon as I see my bed. As soon as my body touches that bed, my body shuts down and I'm asleep for the next couple hours. Well, it put him asleep on the road and he didn't wake up. He flipped the car somewhere, I don't know where at Mississippi, somewhere off I-20, and he died there.
Yeah, it was a small town, Forest, Mississippi.
Sadly. I've been to Forest. Oh, wow. Huh? I've been to Forest once.
Yeah, it was a single car wreck. And, yeah, he fell asleep at the wheel driving home from the graduation. June 2nd of 98. And he flipped the car. Actually, from what I've read, it flipped multiple times. And he was DOA from the wreck. Which, you know, he had been truck driving in between stuff, you know, in that time frame between WWF and WCW. He had done some truck driving, over the road, 18-wheeler kind of stuff. And it was one of those, you know, a truck driver, a guy that's making his living driving, ends up getting killed driving. But yeah, I've never done it either. I know people that have, unfortunately. You know, and I've heard multiple different stories that affects different people different ways. So basically all I can tell you when it comes to the cocaine use. But the one thing that I do know is, and I've known this from everybody that I've talked to, is that it makes you not yourself. So, you know, I'll heed my opinions of those who have done it. But yeah, I mean, 45 years old. You think about it, 1998, he was 45. So he'd be in his early 70s right now. 27 years. Yeah, he'd be like 72.
Something like that.
So, you know, can you imagine the kind of reaction that he would be getting at these WrestleCons and all that kind of stuff if he was able to be there, signing autographs, taking pictures with his fans, especially ones they would do in Louisiana or, you know, Oklahoma or Mid-South territory? Man, he would be getting the kind of reaction that the Ric Flairs get, that the, you know, guys like that get, where there's just a line out the door. It's a shame. It is an absolute shame.
The only suggestion I'm going to give is if you're driving long hours on the road and you start to doze off, pull over and get rest. Pull over and sleep. Sleep it off.
Yep.
Because I almost could have been in a situation like that one time when I was driving back from Ohio, going straight home, 16 hours. And when I was in Alabama, I almost dozed off and went off a intersection.
And
yeah,
I mean, I
had to pull over at a truck stop to like at least get 2 to 3 hours rest, but I was ready to get home. So, but I had to do that because it scared it scared the shit out of me. Like,
yeah. Oh yeah. I mean,
if I'd have went off the road, I would have like went off not a hill or whatever. I'd have went some feet down.
Yeah, I mean, I've made mega long distance drives a few times in my life, whether it was moving or whatever. And yeah, I mean, if you get to that point, you know, do one of two things. Like you said, pull over, if you have the ability, get a couple of hours, you know, just kind of lean the seat back in your car and snooze for a couple of hours, or, you know, go to the bathroom, maybe splash a little water on your face, get yourself, get the blood flowing a little bit from walking and all that. That might buy you a little more time to refresh yourself. But yeah, if you start feeling like that,
or if you hadn't had one yet, hit a 5-hour energy or something. See, I couldn't because I already hit one before I drove, and I already I was going 8 or 9. I was already like 9 hours. Like the 5-hour went off, and then I was driving 4 hours at a pace where I was still fine, and then I started getting a little slow and groggy and stuff. So like, I hit my 5-hour before I took off, and then 9 hours later, I was already exhausted. But yeah, that's a scary thought. But yeah, when it comes to like JYD, like there's only 2 black wrestlers that people still talk about to this day. He's one of them. Another one was Ernie Ladd.
To a degree, yeah. I mean, I think a lot of people still talk about Tony Atlas. And of course, depending how you want to classify him, The Rock.
Yeah, but I'm talking about from Louisiana. Like,
from Louisiana? Yeah.
It's either JYD or the Big Cat.
Yeah, and see, a lot of people don't realize Ernie Ladd's from Louisiana. For whatever reason, they don't realize he's from Louisiana. And
he played football under Eddie Robinson at Grambling.
Yeah, and he played a very long, successful career for the Kansas City Chiefs.
I think he was at one point with the Chargers too. Maybe
he was at the end of his career. Yeah.
JYD.
The Oilers. Football. I think you're right on that one too.
JYD was a football player too. I think he Fayetteville State University. I think that's where he played college at. I looked them up, and they were like a Division II school at the time.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, but like all that time, I thought he was like born and raised, but no, he's originally from North Carolina. But he was a Louisiana boy, because they even they did the Who Dat chant for him too. Like instead of saying Who Dat said they're gonna beat them, say Who Dat said they're gonna beat that dog.
Right. And see, there's 2 women's wrestlers, legendary women's wrestlers from Louisiana. Jazz, who her husband is Rodney Mack, and they currently run one of the most highly regarded wrestling schools in the country. She was born in New Orleans.
Yeah,
and then Sherry Martel was born in New Orleans.
Yep, I was going to say Sherry Martel as well. There's schools somewhere in San Antonio.
Yep. Yeah, it is.
And Rodney Mack's from Church Point, Louisiana, which is about 70 miles from me.
Yeah, and then from what I can see here, John Hyden. I don't know if everybody remembers Heidenreich.
I've met Heidenreich. I saw him wrestle at an indie promotion down here that we used to have called All American Wrestling of Louisiana. He was their world champion.
And then Lash LaRue, who was part of the Filthy Animals in WCW.
I thought he was from Alabama, but he was Corporal Cajun. Yeah.
No, Lash LaRue was born in Lafayette.
Oh, I thought he was born in Alabama.
He's born out near where my wife is from.
And throw this out here, people forget this. Booker T was born in Louisiana. He was born in Plain Dealing, which is by Shreveport, but he moved to Houston when he was about 5 or 6 years old, and he lived in Houston since.
Yeah, but of course, you know the one guy who was born in Louisiana.
Ricky Saints. Yep.
There you go.
Ricky Saints.
But yeah, I mean, a lot of people, there's a lot, and I'm looking at there's a listing here. One Man Gang was born in Louisiana.
Yeah, they mentioned him. Like, he got a big pop when I went to Sacrifice. He was also a big name in Mid-South, too.
And see, one of the guys, we talked about booking the territory. And the group that Harper is with, and I'm sorry, I'm losing track of the name, but Luke Hawx, who's their champion. He played Stone Cold in Young Rock. He's from Louisiana. Um, I'm looking down the list here of folks that people would know. Um, let's see. Um, Taryn Terrell, former knockout champion in TNA.
Yeah, yeah, she's from
Um,
Slidell. She was in TNA. She was the former general manager of ECW when she was Tiffany. Yeah, I remember. I
yeah,
remember Taryn Terrell. She from Slidell, Louisiana.
Wildcat Pro Wrestling. That's the one that Luke Hawx is like one of the. He's one of the. In fact, I think he's one of the owners of the company. He's been their champion a number of times.
By the way,
Hardbot.
Bro,
Yeah.
Brodus Clay don't count. He just lived in Metairie or Covington for 8 years. He's originally from California.
Yeah. Tyrus is from California.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Tyrus.
He's a California guy.
I just remember he was Brodus Clay in WWE. He was the Funkasaurus.
Right. Right. Um, but yeah. So Hardbody Harper that I was telling you about that does part of the book in the territory thing.
Yeah,
He's one of the managers in Wildcat. He's been there quite a long time. In fact, they've got a big show coming up in New Orleans.
yeah,
So, hmm,
and they got some other like wrestling indie promotions here in Louisiana. They got like golf pro. It's like either golf pro wrestling or golf something. I follow them on Facebook. There's a Golf State Wrestling. They're out of Louisiana, and then there's another wrestling promotion. They're either from Crowley or Lafayette. I forgot, but they do a lot of shows in Lafayette. I forgot which one it was, but like they all. And then there's another Pro Wrestling 225 that's in Baton Rouge, and then there's also another indie promotion somewhere around Homa. Like there's like 4 or 5 independent promotions in Louisiana now, and I can only remember like 2 or 3 of them.
well, and there's another guy that we didn't talk about, but he's more known for wrestling in world class and USWA, and that's Alex Porto. Um, he was a really good enhancement talent um, for quite a while in Texas. Got to know him a little bit. Um, Good guy, but yeah, I mean it's kind of crazy when you start looking at the wrestlers that were born, and Wahoo McDaniel was born in Louisiana in Bernice. I'm I'm not real sure where that's at, but Moondog Spot was born in Louisiana. Um, and of course, oh, how was it worded? Hold on, let me get it right because I don't want to say it wrong.
Uh,
Okay, Philip Charles Thomas Buck Robley was born in Louisiana.
okay,
You remember Buck Robley?
I've heard the name, but I've never really seen what he looked like. I've heard the name.
He was a big part of Mid South about the same time as the other guys, as Junkyard Dog and all those guys. He was also a big promoter um, in the South, whether it was Louisiana, Arkansas, Oklahoma, that kind of thing. He worked with and against Watts in different places.
It's crazy how
Um,
Bill Watts is still alive today, and he's like in his late 80s. He's still hanging around.
yeah, he's 87. In fact, he just turned 87 in May. um, I've never met the man, but I've heard, just like with most people, you hear good and bad.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, I mean, when you think about the promotions and all, I did hear something though that I thought was kind of funny on Briscoe and Bradshaw podcast. Jerry Briscoe and JBL.
Yep.
Jerry Briscoe was talking about they did one of those. What do they call it? Not ethnicity, but the like 23andMe type thing, and that kind of deal. The family tree type stuff. And Bill Watts did one and found out that he's Indian. He's actually Native American.
Oh.
He's part of the Chickasaw Nation. So, of course, JBL brought up the comment of, cowboy plays an Indian, or an Indian plays a cowboy.
Wow.
So,
well, anywho, is there any legend you'd like to do on next week?
oh wow, man, there's a ton that we could get into. One of the guys that I always thought was really interesting, and he kind of, yeah, and he kind of has ties to both of our areas.
Okay.
And you actually brought him up a little while ago, is Booker T.
Okay. We can do Booker next week.
Because I was thinking either Booker T or Gino Hernandez. But, there's not a whole lot to Gino because he passed away at 29. There's a lot to him, but there's not. Does that make any sense?
Yeah. Didn't they do? I don't think they did a Dark Side on the Ring of him yet.
Yeah, they did.
Oh, they did. I'm okay.
Oh yeah.
Let me see what season that was. I probably have watched it. I just don't remember.
Season 3, I think. But yeah, they had his mother was on there. David Manning was on it. The guy that found him, the guy that killed him, or the guy that killed Chris Adams was on there.
Yes,
he knew Gino.
Just let me know. Did you decide you want to do Gino or Booker T next week?
Let's do Booker T.
All right. Because his will be a little different. His will be more different because there's really nothing dark side about him. This will be the first one where he's currently still alive today, and it's not a posthumous edition one. And it's going to be probably one of the most positive episodes ever because you'll hear a lot from me about him. Good, a lot of good. The only bad thing you might hear about me to say about him is that British accent when he did King Booker. But
yeah, that was so bad it was good.
I'm looking forward to that one next week. All right, Booker T it is. We'll do him next week.
Yeah, and then I've got something that I was thinking about for following that I was going to run past you off the air. But yeah, Booker T is one of the he is one of those true success stories because it didn't start out real well for him and Stevie Ray.
Yeah,
but he's definitely made a major something out of himself. So it'll be fun to talk about.
Yep. Looking forward to that. But that'll wrap up today's episode. I'm at Dirty South ENT _ on X. I'm also on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. That's where you can find me.
Twitter, Big Rich 8371, or Facebook, just my name, Rich Richardson, and that's where you can find me.
Awesome. Well, I'm looking forward to next week and talk the 5-time WCW champ, old Booker T, and his days with Harlem Heat, the King, and all that good stuff. Even his short run in the NWO. But all right. Well, thank y'all for tuning in and thank y'all for listening. And we'll catch you guys next Saturday.